Not everybody loves to do patching. Not everyone's excited about those types of things, but we like to engage with a quick snapshot, a quick assessment of their existing patch levels. So it's a pretty simple question as you're talking to customers. Hey, when's the last time you did a quick audit snapshot of your patching? You might get a couple of sighs and groans. It's important. It really does matter how these people are managing their environments and what they have from a critical vulnerability standpoint.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Incident Report presented by Quest Technology Management. I'm Paul Burke, Director of Technology Communications. Every week, I'm joined by VP of Sales and Partnerships, Adam Burke. The Incident Report brings you conversations with thought leaders, business innovators, and channel mavericks to help you stay productive and agile in a changing technology landscape. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Incident Report. I say welcome back as if it was a commercial break, but it's been a week. Episode 45. Now it's episode 46. I hope you've had a wonderful week. I'm glad you're here. I'm one half of your host, Paul Burke. Across from me, Adam Burke over there. How you doing, Adam?
Paul, you don't know if people are binge listening to the Incident Report. I would not put it past our astute and distinguished listening audience to, sometimes you just got to rip through 4 or 5 of these at a time. So welcome back to those of you who are listening to it. Please go back, check out the earlier podcasts, and lots of nuggets, lots of pearls, lots of great people and comments in those earlier episodes. So if you are binging, like a straight Netflix series here, welcome back.
Maybe you're on a little cross-country drive, a little New York to California. You're trying to fill up those 20, 30 hours of driving. It could be more. I don't know what path you're taking. And you're like, what a great podcast. I'm going to rip through all 46 episodes. So you're all caught up now. Welcome. Welcome to the future. This is today. This is happening today. I hope your drive's going great. I've found on cross-country drives, stop and take it in. Don't just focus on the drive, focus on those stops. Take a lot of pictures. Those are the great moments to have. The driving, you're going to forget about.
That's deep, Paul. That's deep. I did a cross-country drive from Atlanta to Sacramento. We knocked it out in 26 hours. It was great. It was fantastic. We did not stop to smell the roses once. I think we stopped in New Mexico to let the dog pee, and that was about it.
Well, that's another tactic too. So, soak it in, soak in the grandeur that is America, or just blast through that thing, stop to let a dog pee, and get to California.
3-hour rotation, couple hours of sleep, get it done.
Were you guys rocking podcasts the whole way?
I think we were listening to CNBC, and we were actually cooking up the Quest Partner Program back in 2010 when we made that drive. So, yeah, wow. That was where Quest Partners started out, was on a cross-country drive with Tim, chatting about the channel and how to grow the business. That's kind of how it all kind of kicked off. Was during those, listening to CNBC, Jim Cramer back in 2010, good old days. Yeah, talking business.
You know what? I'm learning too. I did not know that was the origin story of the channel partner program, was a little cross-country drive.
We drove through Memphis, and there was some flash flooding in Memphis and Tennessee areas there. There was a tornado that we kind of dodged on the way across country, and it was a fun drive, man. It was a good time.
Adam, I've realized that I need to work on my transitions because I don't know how to pivot from cross-country drive into the news stories of the day. If you can think of a way, let me know.
Thinking of something else that affects hundreds of people, including our cross-country tales, let's dive into a little VMware vulnerability today, Paul.
Wow, Adam, that was an incredible transition. We're going to keep that. Everybody, please imagine I'm the one who just said those words. Our first story is about VMware. It comes from channel company crn.com website. A ransomware targeting VMware vulnerability has hit hundreds of servers in US and Canada, and it is currently affecting thousands. It's all based on a 2-year-old patch vulnerability that VMware has emailed everybody and let them know, hey, we patched this 2 years ago, so essentially it's not our fault if you didn't update.
They did release that notification, and basically the patch was released, but this kind of comes down to what we're talking about with clients and partners all the time, is maintaining your patching cadence and making sure that you have these types of vulnerabilities addressed. There are thousands and thousands of vulnerabilities out there. We're constantly sending out advisory letters and notifications to clients around known vulnerabilities. This was a known vulnerability. So, to your point, Paul, from a kind of a CYA standpoint, they did send out an hey guys, this is not an unknown, what's called a 0-day vulnerability that's being used to propagate ransomware. This is a known vulnerability with a patch, with a way to secure it. This one's hit a lot of people. So you said it once, say it 1,000 times. Patch your systems, patch your environments, make sure you have the discipline to constantly audit that and make sure your patch levels are up to date.
Here's the quote I had mentioned earlier. VMware has not found evidence that suggests an unknown vulnerability, 0-day, is being used to propagate the ransomware used in each of these recent attacks. Most reports state that end of general support and/or significantly out-of-date products are being targeted with known vulnerabilities, which were previously addressed and disclosed in VMware security advisories. I feel like this statement is the equivalent of shouting "not it" into the channel.
Yeah, and that is one of those things where it's the security advisory, end of general support, 0-day or unknown vulnerability. All of these types of statements are in your end user licensing agreements and your MSAs. Anytime you sign on for this software, I don't care if it's VMware or Microsoft or AWS or Red Hat, or don't care who the software vendor is or the OEM, read those agreements and pay attention to those advisories, because they've got great lawyers and they're not going to, liability is going to be a little bit of a game of hot potato. So pay attention. It's the cheapest thing you can do, Paul.
This episode is packed with wisdom. Every minute, another nugget. Adam, if you are a partner in the channel, how would you approach a company with patching as an option? Like if it's a service you offer, how would you approach a business, a client?
It's kind of like general cyber hygiene, or just kind of your maintenance. Not everybody loves to do patching. Not everyone's excited about those types of things, but we like to engage with a quick snapshot, a quick assessment of their existing patch levels. So you could do it a couple ways. We've done it through reputational analysis, an external scan, seeing how they're presenting themselves to the outside world. That's one way the bad actors are also finding these companies that have these vulnerabilities, right? They're doing scans and looking for known vulnerabilities. And then we also do a patching assessment where we drop in a couple tools and take a quick look at their current patch levels and look for anything that's known vulnerabilities, critical vulnerabilities, and we kind of tier it out for them. So it's a pretty simple question as you're talking to customers. Hey, when's the last time you did a quick audit snapshot of your patching? You might get a couple sighs and groans. It's important. It really does matter how these people are managing their environments and what they have from a critical vulnerability standpoint.
Adam, you know what else is important? The job numbers of the U.S. economy. And that brings us to our second article. I'm getting better, Adam. ChannelE2E.com. January job numbers jumped 517,000. The unemployment rate fell to 3.4%, which is the lowest rate in 50 years, according to a report from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics.
So we saw this during the pandemic, right? We saw everyone kind of raise prices across the board, whether it was real or not. Like we saw vendors who were just 100% in the software game say, yeah, COVID pandemic really hitting the labor and materials. Like, dude, you make software. Like, what are you talking about? They're kind of seeing the same trend right now. It feels like with big tech, right? So you had Microsoft lay off a big chunk of users. You had AWS lay off, I think it was around 20,000, Verizon around 26,000. You got all these big layoffs going. And today, actually, I just released that Zoom, they're cutting their workforce by 15%.
Wow, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, that just dropped this morning. So something to kind of rant about that. Just kind of, it's a weird situation. I don't mean to call anyone out on it, but they're cutting their workforce by 15%. They're kind of using the idea that, hey, we overhired during the pandemic, which I get. Okay, you overhired and tried to get tech talent and didn't know what to do.
It seems like a lot of organizations have been using that we overhired.
Yeah, sorry, so thanks for helping me connect the dots there. Same as the pandemic raising prices, they're all kind of using the same story, like, oh, we overhired during the pandemic and now we got to slash. One of the things that Zoom is kind of, I don't know if their PR team is throwing this out there, but I don't know, read the fine print, people, and just look at some of these stories, because it's kind of garbage analogy. They're saying that Eric Wan is giving up 98% of his salary for the year in solidarity with the 15% of the labor force that they cut. Well, if you peel that back a little bit, like Eric owns 22% of Zoom, and Zoom's a $19 billion company whose stock just jumped up by 7%, I believe, midday trading today. So yeah, he didn't take his salary for this year, which is around $170 million, but he controls $4.5 billion worth of the stock, which just popped by 7%. come on, dude. Like, I get it, but just leave it out. Just, hey, you got to reduce the workforce. Stop with the whole solidarity thing. That's kind of bogus. It's you own 20% of a multi-billion-dollar company, and the stock just jumped a little bit because you cut 15% of your labor and your overhead. So I get it. It's part of people, trying to figure out the best way to attack the long-term strategy. But just leave that out. I just don't even. To me, that's be insulting. Like, oh, thank you, appreciate your sacrifice. Like, kiss my ass. And for all the people who got let go, one of the things that's really great to see in the channel, like this article says, a lot of the people who are losing jobs in high tech industry, they're getting scooped up by other players, and they're getting hired. It's not everybody, and that it sucks for people going through it right now. But we are seeing in our community a lot of people reaching out and seeing it all over LinkedIn. Hey, if you're part of this organization that just was let go, let me know and I can help you from a network standpoint. Seeing those messages all over LinkedIn and kind of private network chats, which is great to see. Cool to see people caring about that kind of thing.
That is fantastic to see. And it's great to hear about, because I didn't know that was happening. And when I read this, and then you tell me like a lot of these people are getting scooped up, it is really nice to see, because a lot of the news stories out there just focus on like, hey, here are another 20,000 people, here are another 30,000 people being laid off. And they don't follow it up with any sort of insight about like, are they being hired quickly? It's just like, well, more people unemployed. And, this is more of a fuller story, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I kind of like the way Channel EDE, we'll put it in the show notes, but they did a good job of kind of talking through the nuances of, the labor market is such a complex thing, when it comes to second jobs and who's actually in the labor force and all that kind of thing. The headlines are often can be misleading. You can take data, you can get data to say whatever you want it to. Just depending on what your bent is. So it's cool to see some nuance, which I think they did a great job of highlighting.
I'd also like to thank E2E mentioning that the economists were shocked that the report number was as high as it was, 519,000 jobs. They did not predict that. I like to imagine all the economists sitting around, their monocles falling off, dropping their leather-bound books, just shocked, going harumph, harumph. We did not predict this.
I got a degree in economics from the great University of California, Davis, and economists are mainly full of shit. They kind of take data from yesterday to explain why their predictions about today were wrong. It's a soft science. It's as soft as you get, and you can literally manipulate the numbers to tell whatever story you want. So I love, economists are always shocked. Oh, I couldn't, this didn't, my spreadsheet that I put together and modeled this out didn't work out. Like, yeah, well, there's 20 different inputs and a bunch of different variables that you didn't account for. I'm not a huge fan of listening to what economists have to say about anything.
I feel like economists are like the sports commentators of the financial industry, that they're making guesses and predictions, and they're shocked when their team didn't win or, somebody didn't score that many points.
Economists are like the fat guy who used to play college football or used to play high school football and was like a good quarterback. Who's the uncle from Napoleon Dynamite? Who is that guy who could throw it over the mountain over there? That's what an economist is. That's what an economist is. They got some glory day. They have a model that they read one time. They're doing their best to keep getting their salary and check in on everyone else's fears about what's actually happening.
Driving around in their van, throwing their football around.
Yeah, not putting a lot of stock in what those guys are pumping out there, but it is good to see the actual data coming out and what people are dealing with. So,
Adam, speaking of people dealing with things, that brings us to our final story. Channelfutures.com, 4 signs you need to revamp your channel partner program. Jonathan Eisner, nice enough to put together the 4 reasons you might need to revamp your channel partner program. Number 1, misalignment of goals. Every year, organizations shift their business goals to ensure continued growth. Your channel goals may also need to evolve and align with this shift.
Yeah, so misalignment of goals, I think one of the first things we ask people we're doing business with is, how do you get paid, right? Because people are going to make decisions based on how they get paid. And, goals are going to be dictated by, at the end of the day, how are you making money? And that's going to sometimes dictate a lot of, what you're invested in doing. So I think it's very good to be transparent about that with your channel partners, understanding what they care about. And I don't mean to be too cynical. I know people are always going to say, customer first, and I'll do what's right for the customer and all that kind of stuff. Yes, 100% agree with that. And that's the long game. But people tend to sometimes make decisions in the short term as well, which can kind of veer you off course. And sometimes the short term decisions are based on how you're making money. So understanding that, having a clear kind of dialogue about, hey, this is what our goal is. This is what, our organization is building towards, and here's what we're incentivizing. So we put together SPIF programs and growth programs. And one of our biggest goals we talked about last week within our company is we do a lot of different things and we can help people in a lot of different service areas. So one of our largest goals is to make sure that we are helping our clients and our partners take advantage of as much as we can offer to them as possible, and making sure that they're aware that we can help in all those different service pillar areas. So I think that just comes down to effective communicating.
Number 2, overcoming challenges. When you're facing repetitive challenges, a single change to the program may resolve the issue. Have you ever over-engineered your requirements, making it too hard for partners to join or succeed within your program? If only a small percentage of your partners are meeting the program requirements, it may be time to look at reducing the commitment needed, or even adding another tier or program to accommodate the different capabilities and engagement of partners.
Great number there as far as overcoming challenges, and completely agree. When we're evaluating new partners to bring on board into our portfolio of services, sometimes the onboarding can be pretty daunting. Like, you got to send 2 of your billable engineers away to XYZ vendor camp for 3 weeks, and they got to get fully trained and certified, and they have to take tests, every 4 weeks, and blah, blah, blah. So they got all these hoops you got to jump through. It's like, well, hang on, guys, we're not even selling anything yet. Like, what are we doing here? And then on the inverse of that, we as a supplier to the channel for services, we've overcomplicated things. We had a SPIF program that kind of came back and bit us in the butt a little bit, because it was just such a pain in the butt for our partners to basically submit their information to get access to the SPIF. We way overcomplicated it, because SPIFs are fun, but they have tax ramifications. So if you pay someone more than $600 in a given year, you have to have all their tax information. So we thought, hey, great idea. We're going to nominate you for the SPIF program, and give us all your financial information, including your social security number, so we can get you the appropriate tax documentation after we pay you. Not something a lot of people want to deal with, right? That's one of those things where it's like, hey, okay, cool. We wanted to get this done, didn't work out. Let's reconfigure it a little bit, make it easier for the salesperson to get and change around a little bit. So I think we deal with it on both ends. We deal that with our people that we're trying to get our services out to market, as well as, vendors who come to us with some pretty significant hoops to jump through.
And I think one of the implications in these 4 suggestions is the importance of listening. And I'm curious, during the SPIF issue, did we internally realize the problem, or did our partners come to us and say, hey, we have an issue with this SPIF program?
We followed up with a couple folks, because we would nominate them for, it was basically a reloadable gift card that we could add funds to, basically saying, hey, thank you for XYZ, appreciate the new referral or the new partner, blah, blah, blah. Just basically a thank you card that we could reload. And we noticed that we had sent out about 12 of them, and I think 2 people had gone through the time to activate them. And these aren't small spiffs. These are a couple $1,000 a piece type of things. So it's like that's weird. I mean, maybe a $20 Amazon gift card isn't quite worth the lift, but this guy has got $1,000 in his account waiting for him. Like, what's holding this up? And so we reached out and asked, because we were just saying, hey, we'd love to add more. We'd love to make sure you're getting more in here, because we want to basically incentivize people to work with us. And it was that burden of getting tax information and documentation and activating, and it was a pain in the butt to get that done. I think something we're seeing in the channel, and something we're seeing, I think everyone's used to it now. If you create too much of a burden to entry to anything you're doing, I don't care if it's Peacock or Netflix or Disney Plus or a Quest channel SPIF program, if you put too many steps in there that are too hard to execute, people just stop. I don't know. Our culture most people just stop and just, nah, I'm not going to do that right now. So you got to make it easy for people to transact. You got to make it easy for people to get their information to you, and for you to get funds to them.
Okay, so funny you mention it, because that actually ties into number 3, which is performance indicators. And one of the things that Eisner mentions here is find out those partners who are exceeding the targets that are set for them, and use that as a blueprint. Look at their success and figure out, why are they being so successful? And then use that as a blueprint to share with other partners that, hey, this is your path to success. This will help you out.
So I'm a little torn on this one. I hate when vendors do this to us. So I'll rant a little bit about this real quick. This is one of those things where it's like, hey, tell me all the things that you're doing right so I can take this to all your competitors and tell them exactly how to do that too.
When you put it that way, Adam, I see what you're saying.
It's I get it. I like the idea of feed your eagles, starve your turkeys, right? Feed the people who are feeding you, help them do more, get them done. Your turkeys are out there, everyone's got the 80-20 rule, 20% of your channel is doing the majority of your business and 80% aren't quite there. So you gotta kind of educate the people who aren't quite hitting it yet. Feed your eagles with more opportunity, more resources, make them want to do business with you. I hate the idea of taking their stuff and replicating it. I hate that. We have a couple of vendors who do that to us. They come in and say, hey, tell us all the cool things you're doing because we want to help the channel do what you're doing. It's like, well, hang on a second. That's called intellectual property. And what? So that one can throw me off a little bit, and I probably ranted a little bit too much on that one. So I'm going to tone that one back.
That makes sense. But I will say this, if you do feed your eagles and starve your turkeys, it's going to make a very challenging Thanksgiving because you have very skinny turkeys and they won't be bought by any families. So you're going to have only a handful of plump turkeys that...
No one likes turkey, bro. No one likes turkey. Turkey is the crappiest meat ever. All right. Ooh, I don't know who came up with it on Thanksgiving that they're going to have turkey. No one likes it, bro. No one likes turkey.
I'll be honest,
crap.
Bro, I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of turkey. I'm not a fan of ham. I don't know how those two have kind of like floated to the top as popular.
Benjamin Franklin wanted the turkey to be the national bird.
Yeah.
No one ever talks about Benny and the turkey. No one talks about Ben.
Nobody ever talks about Benny. That's a great title for a book. Nobody ever talks about Benny.
Oh, we are way off track. That's okay. It's coming up on Super Bowl weekend. We can talk about the Eagles and their demise, hopefully.
Ooh, I don't know. Truthfully, I would like if Kansas City won. I feel like the Eagles are pretty formidable.
They're playing in State Farm Stadium, all right? Kansas City's got to win. Mahomes in State Farm Stadium. Come on.
Adam is guaranteeing a win. But having said that, we should also mention this is not investment advice and not an encouragement to gamble.
I'm telling you to bet. I'll bet it all. Put the house, mortgage it twice. This is not investment advice or an offer to bet or any type of investment advice whatsoever.
But you know what is important, Adam? Number 4 here on this list, low conversion rate. Perhaps partners aren't meeting the requirements you set for the program. This could be an indicator that the partner needs further training and resources. It could indicate you need to take a hard look at how the product offering is positioned with partners. Do you have what it takes to be successful? And do they have what it takes to be successful?
That's a great point. And I think getting to know this, all of these have to do with communication, right? So all of them have to do with communication as far as how people are performing. And the low conversion rate is something we've dealt with because a lot of times as a system integrator and a service provider, it can be a complex sale. I was on a call yesterday with a partner who was really struggling to kind of wrap around like, what would you say you do here kind of conversation, right? And we were talking and she's like, okay, so you're a professional services organization. I'm like, well, no, we do day 2 managed services as well. And okay, well, so you guys manage products that you sell. No, we'll manage products that they have in their environment. And the light bulbs were going off in my head. And one of our technology service brokers was on the line with me and he jumped in and saved and said, hey, why don't we do a training exercise and walk through 3 or 4 examples of these different areas where Quest has helped partners? Because it can be complex. There's a lot of things out there that we do. We love to do what we call capability reviews, where we kind of walk people through, hey, here's an example of a complex solution. It was a business outcome, and here's kind of 4 or 5 building blocks that went into this to solve this customer's problem. A lot of partners aren't quite there yet and aren't dealing with people that take a building block approach. Usually there's 1 or 2 things on their line card that they do 1, they do 2, they do A, B, or C, pick one. It takes time to get away from that. It takes time to kind of build up that muscle memory of having a building blocks conversation.
I think that's a great point because Eisner mentions that as well. Like he talks about it in changes. Like if you change the partner program, make sure you start with your internal team that they're aware of changes first and then move out to the other people. So I think what you're talking about, and maybe I'm off base and I didn't hear you correctly, but like make sure you're communicating clearly with people and so they understand fully.
Yeah, and the process of how you get there. So yeah, get your internal team. This is the storyline. You got to be able to tell it in a story,
Mhm.
right? So how is this actually going to happen? I have a customer who wants you to manage their security environment and wants you to patch all of their servers. Okay, cool. How, work with the partner to talk about, okay, how are we actually going to tie into their existing environment from a security standpoint? How are we going to gain access? How are we going to manage that? And then how are we going to roll out patching for their server environment in a diverse data center? A lot of people are kind of like, how do you do that? Tell them a story. So make sure the story is consistent within your organization, and then make sure you're all telling the same story to your partners so it's repeatable.
And to tie this back to the first story we did about ransomware, probably there was no story there, that people just assumed the patching was happening. All the assumptions being made over 2 years that all this patching was happening, rather than a story being told like, hey, we're going to patch every month. We're going to patch every 2 weeks. This is the lineup. Here are the dates. We're going to go out until this far to patch. But if without a story, everybody's working on assumptions, and that can lead to a lot of issues like ransomware.
Yeah, and it can lead to things falling through the cracks. So hey, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, here's how we're doing it, and here's how we're validating that it's been done, right? So here's the kind of the workflow, and here's how you're trusting but verifying, and here's the service level around that verification, and here's what it costs. Those are all pieces of the puzzle. Sometimes people get too focused on, hey, how are you going to do this and what technology you're going to use, versus there's 5 or 6 and then kind of things that go along with that. It's good to tell that story with your partners.
Well, this brings us to the portion of our show called What's Happening This Week That You're Looking Forward To. Adam, what's happening this week you're looking forward to?
Well, we got the Super Bowl coming up, Super Bowl Sunday. I have no dog in the fight because we had an embarrassing game against the Eagles from the 49ers standpoint. I mean, I think we ran out of quarterbacks. Our third string guy got hurt. Purdy was down. And then we had the concussion protocol for the backup. I think that he lasted 2 or 3 drives. That was tough. Ugly day. Even though Kansas City going against I don't know what the heck the refs were doing on that one. That was brutal. If you're a Cincinnati fan, that's tough. But with the Eagles, I got to root for Kansas City on this one, since they kind of embarrassed my Niners. So that's what I'm looking forward to, Paul, and hopefully some great M&M's commercials as well.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to watching more episodes of Succession, because I got sucked into that. And I don't know if you watch Succession, Adam, but for me, Succession is a lot like eating peppermint ice cream. Whenever I eat peppermint ice cream, I feel like I'm doing something good for myself, because it doesn't taste like fattening. You know what I mean? It tastes like I'm doing something healthy. And that's what Succession is. I feel like I'm getting smarter and learning more. But I know I'm probably not, just like peppermint ice cream. I know I'm probably not getting healthier, but I feel like I'm getting smarter just watching Succession.
With all the insider trading and the backstabbing and the private equity, venture capital shenanigans. And
yeah, Adam, human nature, just people becoming animals when it comes to money. Just the depravity.
That's a fun one. Yeah, we've been watching that one since season 1 while it's been out. So yeah, that's a great one. Who's the actor, the main guy? What's that guy's name? He's the British dude. He was the bad guy in the X-Men movies. What's his name? He also does the McDonald's commercials. Every time I hear the ba-da-ba-ba-ba, that he does that, I always think of the bad dude from X-Files, but he's the main guy in Succession.
I want to say it's Brian something, but I think it's Scott. Brian Scott. Maybe I'm wrong. If anybody wants to let us know in the comments, I'd love to know what that is. Who is he?
Brian Cox. Brian Cox.
Brian Cox
plays Logan Roy. Yeah. And dude, Macaulay Culkin's brother's in it. I mean, how can you not love the show?
He's so good. He's so good.
He's a little creep, but he's good.
He plays a perfect creep. So
yeah.
Well, guys, check out Succession. Check out the Super Bowl. What a busy week of stuff. This has been a great show. Thanks for hanging out, Adam.
Have a great week and get your patches updated.
Have a great week, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. The Incident Report is brought to you by Quest Technology Management. With over 40 years of experience, Quest is a leading technology integrator working seamlessly with your staff and systems to achieve your IT goals. Learn more about everything they do at questsys.com. And if you have questions or suggestions for the podcast, you can always email Adam and myself at theincidentreport@questsys.com. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.